Good morning. I want to talk today about the function of your brain as primarily a filter. What I mean by that is that the world around you is providing input of various kinds. And you have 5 sensory organs: your skin, or your nerve endings in your skin, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your mouth. So you have sight, sound, taste, hearing, touch, and the input is translated by the nerves in these various sense organs and is filtered by your brain to create your sense of reality. So as you watch this video, there is a set of precognitive, I think that's the right word, or precognitive functions that your brain is carrying out before you're aware of it. That's what I think precognitive means. So it's before cognition or before conscious awareness. So you look at the video, and first of all, you know you're looking at a video. You don't have to think yourself, what is this I'm watching? Oh, it's a video. You recognize me as a male human. You recognize that the shirt is the color is red, that there is a wall behind me with some pictures on it. So your brain is labeling, filtering, and categorizing all this information before you're aware of it. Right? And then you become aware of the scene that you're in. You're consciously aware of being in a room, looking at a cell phone or a computer. And then your mind, your conscious mind, who you normally identify with, the personality or the ego that you normally identify with, is handed this set of precognitive filtered reality sets, and then you're told to make a decision about that, or you as a biological being are put in a situation where your mind, your thinking mind, of course, your rational mind, is making judgments and decisions about what you're watching. Am I liking the video? Should I change the video? Should I watch another video? Who's calling my name? Is my phone ringing? Why did my phone just buzz? All the series of things that are happening around you. So, precognitive input, your brain filters and processes the information, hands you a scene where it sort of feels like you're back here watching the scene, even though you're actually in the very scene that you're watching. You're just as much a part of it as I am and everything else is. The problem, of course, or maybe not the problem, but the situation I'm describing, and the reason why you kind of feel like this being back here watching the scene rather than being part of the scene, is because of that precognitive processing of information. Because you, as the observer, are always at least one thought away from reality. Because reality is happening all around you. The wall here is happening, this is happening, these pictures are happening, my hair is happening, and boy is it happening, right? It is really happening today. So all these things are happening. Your brain, doing its job to help you as a biological entity survive your environment, is processing information to save you time, and then hands you the scenario and says, okay, here's what we're looking at, and it's doing this over and over and over and over and over in this stream the stream of consciousness that's so fast that it seems to you like there is no break in processing. But you're always going to be one thought away from what's really happening. because you're processing the information, you're judging the information, you're trying to determine what's happening. Because you're not you, the ego that identifies you as you, the person you think you are, isn't the one doing all that processing. That's happening by another part of your brain that you would not identify as you. You might call it your subconscious. I don't know what you would call it, but it's sort of you, but it's not really you, right? It's a part of you, but it's not really you. It's not the you that you would identify by your name. It's some sort of other thing that's happening. Now obviously, and I think I'm going to use the right word here, but the oceanic experience that babies have, right, before they're taught the small mouth sounds that we call words that describe our environment, they don't have language, they don't have labels for things, so they experience what people call the oceanic experience. So they are part of the whole. They don't separate me and the rest of it, or label, and I'm a separate label from everything else, so therefore I must be separate from everything else. They don't have that experience because they don't have the barrier of language. Now, babies can't survive on their own, and you would say, well, I'm not suggesting necessarily that the oceanic experience is better than the experience that you and I are having now, because your survival rate would probably not be as high. What I am saying is that most people, 99.99% of the time or more, assume that this precognitive processing and then conscious processing of reality is reality, that it's the only reality that there is. But we know that's not true because babies before language with this oceanic experience have an entirely different experience of reality than you and I have. Which means that both of those realities are only relatively real. And you can have an oceanic experience now. At least I think you can. It's sort of like peeling back the layers of an onion. The way I describe it to people is that reality is happening arbitrarily, let's just say reality is happening here. Who you think you are as the conscious observer is several steps back, right? And in that space between here and here is all of that precognitive processing and filtering. And of course by filtering I mean things like if you were in the jungle, your brain is processing colors and sounds and smells, and suddenly a panther appears on the scene, your brain is going to filter your attention away from trees and flowers to panther, because you don't want to get eaten, right? So, conscious observer, reality, interval space is precognitive processing and filtering. Babies don't have filters because they haven't been taught survival skills, so they don't. Although some of it is, well, I don't want to get into that today. They haven't been taught stuff by us, and they don't have language, so there's no labeling, so there's no precognitive processing because there's nothing to process, because everything is one for them, because they haven't learned to separate psychologically. So, they aren't back here, they're right here. You and I have been taught a bunch of stuff, and the more we learn, it seems like the further away we get from reality, because we're constantly processing, learning new ways to process information. We get new buzzwords and new labels for things. But this experience is very different from this experience. And what I've been able to do, and what other people have been able to do, is to peel back this space, this interval space, and you get closer and closer and closer to what's really happening, what you would call the now moment, I guess you could call the oceanic experience, where you, the conscious observer, are not separated from reality. through your own mind, because that's what you've been taught to do. That's what I teach my children to do, right? I teach them how to survive by learning, don't stick your finger in that because that's an electrical socket. The food is hot, it will burn you. Moving cars are dangerous, things like that. Because I love my kids, I want them to not get killed. So I have to teach them how to label and process information. But in the right setting, in a safe place, you can learn to allow yourself to peel back the layers and close that gap so that you are here now. Like Ram Dass's book, his first book, Be Here Now. Of course, he was using psychedelics. I do not use psychedelics, I just use meditation. But it is possible to close that gap. And for those of you who, well, you're like me, you're a Western achiever and you want to know what's the point, why would I bother? I would say that it is an experience like no other. That it opens your eyes to the fact that the reality that you're living in now is only a relative one. As in, it's not absolutely real. And you will see just how much filtering and processing you're doing on a second-by-second basis, completely unconsciously, because you weren't taught to be conscious of the filtering process. You were taught to just accept the bundle that was handed to you because it's faster if you can just accept it and process it as truth. I hope that makes sense. This is not the kind of thing where you can hear it and if you haven't experienced, understand it. You can probably see the direction I'm trying to move you in, but unless you've experienced it yourself, it's like I described skydiving. When I went skydiving, you would say that if I described skydiving to you, you would go, okay, sure, put a parachute, jump out of a plane, fall. I get it, sounds terrifying, don't want to do it. But the reality of actually skydiving versus even watching videos of other people skydiving are so vastly different that you have to do it to get it, right? Same thing here. So, if you have any questions, let me know. I encourage you to get into meditation or some other method. It's not just meditation. There's plenty of ways to do it. Like Ram Dass has said over and over again in many of his lectures, it's very overdetermined how we get to these kinds of spaces. People tend to assume that the way they got there is the only way to get there, when in fact there are dozens, maybe hundreds of ways. You just have to find the way that works for you. Have a great day.